Hello everybody. This is going to be a video on how to install a Minarelli vertical cylinder on your engine. This is everything included in my kit in the description. This is the full conversion kit, Minarelli 70cc. With the cylinder kit, you'll get a stock head. This one's wrapped up because we're putting an aftermarket head on. You'll get the Minarelli cylinder, Minarelli piston, and the rings, wrist pin, and wrist pin clips, as well as the intake adapter. These are designed to fit a VM20, a 10mm spacer for a long rod 40mm geometry, an intake reed valve. I really like these metal reed valves with the rubber sealing face. It requires one less gasket to put on, and then last, the intake gasket for the back of the intake. So the tools needed, pretty simple here. Your Allen key, it's going to be a 5mm, pretty much the same as all the other parts on the case. We're just going to use those for the reed valve to bolt everything on. Some needle nose pliers, just for your ring clips, and then a socket wrench for your head bolts. And then I prefer ultra gray. This is what I use to seal the spacer. I don't use any base gaskets to set the squish correctly. That is how the spacer is designed to run. The ZL and the Zeta 80s, these are the two only cranks that I know that will always have the correct geometry. Sometimes some FM80s and ZM N80s, I believe. Sometimes they have 40mm stroke, sometimes they're 38, you'll have to check. But this is the geometry that's needed for these spacer plates. They're 10mm. If you use a short rod, it will not work. 38mm stroke will not work. They need to be the 40mm stroke and long rod cranks. Depending on where you buy your cylinder, they come stock with M6 stud holes. That's what the scooters use originally. If you buy them from me, I will drill them out for you. The heads will be drilled out. Everything's ready to bolt on. Otherwise, if you get it on somewhere like Maxi Scoot or Scooter Tuning or Dyno Scoot, wherever, you will have to drill those out. They're usually pretty easy. Anybody with a drill press can do it. Just drill it out to the 8mm clearance. So first, start with your spacer plate. Take your Ultra Gray, put a nice seal all the way around, everywhere that it's going to touch the case. I've already done this to save time. Get a good bead around. I like to put a little bit extra right in the middle, at the top and at the bottom, where the case halves actually come together. And then right here on the edge of the transfers. This is a ported case, so there's a little bit less meat to grab onto. Just take my finger, make sure everything's covered. Okay. And then it's good to install. The notch will be on the back. That'll coordinate to the actual intake on the cylinder. Make sure the angles face the correct way. Otherwise, it will leak on the case, because the transfers on the Minarellis are much larger than a stock case is. This will slide right down. With the threads, there might be a little bit of resistance, but that's fine. Just keep pushing down. Next is to prep your cylinder and piston assembly. I like to put the first ring clip in first. That way I'm not messing with both sides, and I can just slide the pin on, put the next clip in, and go. I really prefer these G clips. They're much better than one of the clips that have the two prongs on them. These will not come apart, unlike the other ones. All the kits that I sell have these G clips. Go ahead and slide that in the piston. Turn it around, make sure it's seated. All right. Make sure the window's facing the rear. And put your piston in the cylinder. Okay. leave a little bit out there so you can put the ring piston wrist pin in. Get that prepped. Fresh right out of the plastic. Alright, now is to put a little bit of that ultra gray on the bottom of the cylinder. This is going to seal on the top of the spacer. Alright, I just put the ultra gray on here again to save time. This is going to be a machine face to machine face, so you need a lot less. If you put too much, it's okay, it's not going to hurt it, but you will make a big mess because this stuff's going to seep out everywhere. Get the whole face coated. And then we're going to get this ready to line up. This is going to be just like a normal installation for a normal China girl. Piston goes in. You have your wrist pin bearing, which I have to find. I forgot that. Okay, I found it. This is just a regular China girl bearing. These are actually really good. I've used these on pretty much every one of my engines. I use them on mine personally. You can get upgraded ones, but I have never had one of these fail, so we're going to stick with it. Goes in the rod like normal. Careful not to drop it. Set it up. And also be careful of this ultra gray. I just grabbed it. Take your wrist pin. Slide it in. Alright, that's in. And don't forget the other side. Wrist pin clip. Okay, that's good. Slide the cylinder down. Make sure it's nice and smooth, no rings are snagged, everything's seated correctly. So there we are. Piston is moving. Good to go. Alright, next step is to put your head on. I also use just a stock China girl gasket. These work really well, sets the squish nearly perfectly every time. Slide that right over perfectly. Take your head. Again, this is going to be aftermarket. The kits will come with a stock one. You can use this. I do recommend getting a better head just for cooling, but I'll tighten all my head nuts down just hand tight. They don't need to be crazy. Go each side individually. Make sure they're all even. And then good turn until they feel like they're at their max resistance. And the last step here is going to be the intake. So the intake, you have your reed valve, intake adapter, and a gasket. If you buy these by yourself, some of these intakes won't have the rubber, or you may or may not have a gasket. You can substitute ultra gray for this too. I've done that. Just makes it a little bit harder when you need to take it apart. So get that ready. And my 4 M6 bolts, I think these are 1 inch long, maybe 20 millimeters, I'm not exactly sure. Also let me take this apart real quick. They go in like this, so this part's going to fit down in the groove that'll be into the bottom of the case. There's pretty much only one way to install this. You can't mess it up. All the grooves and everything line up to the cylinder and intake and everything. just tighten these down evenly all around, make sure everything is aligned. All of them should thread in very easily. There shouldn't be a lot of resistance until towards the end. Sometimes some reeds have the reed stoppers are a little bit bent out further. They vary depending on how they come from the factory, so you just need to screw them in, bend them in to fit. Nothing's hurt there. And torque that down, hand tight. And it's complete. At this point, the engine's pretty much complete. I like to use the VM20. It's a Mikuni. These things are perfectly sized for the 70 cc's. That's what I designed the intake to fit. Right there, fits everywhere. Clutch has just enough room. Fits perfect. I also have adapters for Mikuni VM18s. That just bolts onto there. A little bit of ultra gray on the back. Perfect, good to go. And then last, I also have these header flanges. That's going to be for your exhaust. These are really nice. They help adapt all sorts of pipes. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Pretty much necessary for these engines is either a nice dirt bike pipe or a scooter pipe. They pretty much won't run anything cheap China Girl related. Definitely not stock pipes. None of that BikeBerry crap. We don't deal with that here. All right. That is all. If you have any questions, let me know. Leave a comment. I'll post some links to things. All the intakes, adapters, cylinder kits. Check me out, Smolik Performance. Thank you.